Hey guys, welcome back to another Pokemon Unite video. My name is Brian, and in today's video we're going to be making a tier list for all of the held items in the game again. This time for the current patch, which is patch number 2. The third patch is coming out next week. It's possible that they might make more changes when that comes around, but I feel like, I don't know, something about right now feels like a good time to make another tier list video for the held items, a more updated one, just to kind of get you guys up to date with what's happening. If I haven't mentioned it already, I am in Masters, and the game has been out long enough at this point where I feel like players and the community is starting to get a pretty good sense, and enough playtesting has happened where we kind of understand pretty much all the items very well at this point, down to the T, in terms of how long it takes for abilities to come off cooldown, so you can actually get their effects, their passive effects again, such as like Focus Band. How long does it take before you get Focus Band's healing, for example? Stuff like that. Enough time has happened where all of these testings have pretty much occurred, and it allows us a better idea of what is better than others in this situation. So just as a quick disclaimer, I'm only going to be doing held items in this video. If you're looking for a tier list video in regards to battle items, I've already made one. I'll be leaving a card somewhere in the top right corner of the screen or something. You should be able to click on it and you can go ahead and check that out. It's pretty short. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the staples and don't use first, just to get that out of the way. With the don't use category, I'm putting Aeos Cookie, Leftovers, and Rocky Helmet in this category. Some of you might be a little shocked by the Rocky Helmet, and I can explain all of these. All right, it might be a little controversial with Rocky Helmet, but I'll explain. So in terms of the Aeos Cookie, the way that all of the score items in this game work, so the Heavyweight, the Aeos Cookie, where's the other one? And the Special Attack Lens, or whatever these are called. The way these work is that every time you score a goal, you get 100, whatever the stat is that it boosts, and you can only stack that up to 6 times. And I think that's the key thing to note here that people don't know and the game doesn't tell you, is that it only stacks up to 6 times. So, for example, with the Aeos Cookie, I can only score up to, or not score up to, but after my 6th goal with the Aeos Cookie, you will no longer gain the benefits of Aeos Cookie. So at max, Aeos Cookie can only gain you a max of 600 bonus HP, max HP, throughout an entire game. Even if you've scored like 10 goals throughout the entire game, Aeos Cookie will not stack beyond that 6th goal. And all the other score items work just like that. Heavyweight will only give you a bonus of, what is it, like 60, I think? Physical attack, and same thing with the Special Attack Lens. It'll only give you a bonus to 60. Now, the reason why the Aeos Cookie is here on top of that cap, essentially, is strictly because of the fact that there's already many items in the game that already give you passive health buffs just from having the item equipped, on top of having other bonus effects added to it, which in my opinion is just strictly better. I'd rather trade out 100 or 2 HP for those other extra bonus effects from the other items, compared to having Aeos Cookie, where I might be able to go to goal if I'm able to, or I might not even get close to scoring 6 goals. I might only get to score 2 or 3 goals that entire round, in which case I'm not really getting too much use out of the Aeos Cookie. So it's just, there's other items that kind of do its job, but also have more effects to do it better. So Aeos Cookie doesn't work here. Leftovers I wish was a little better. I've actually done some testing with Leftovers too. Leftovers does provide an HP buff. You can even say even Leftovers is a little bit better than Aeos Cookie, because Leftovers gives you health buffs too, but it doesn't do enough, in my opinion, to really be worthwhile. The healing takes a little too long to activate, and the thing is, the item needs to be leveled up so much. Even at level 30, it needs to be leveled up so much to even get barely usable value out of it, where even like other items just need to barely be level 10 or 20 to get way more use than you would with Leftovers. The heal rate from Leftovers is also pretty decent. A level 20 Leftovers is comparable to, like, it's almost like you're standing at your goalpost your outermost skill post and getting healed 200 HP roughly every second while you're being healed by it. It's worth noting though that leftovers only activates only 8 seconds out of combat. So you have to have left combat and wait 8 seconds before the healing will actually kick in from leftovers. So oftentimes the actual ability to kick in and activate just tends to be really slow, on top of it doesn't feel like the healing is enough a lot of times. You'd rather just have a different item that boosts your effect and have, like, I don't know, even potion. Just have potion on and then stand at a goal post and you'll probably get healed up pretty quickly, the same way you would with leftovers. Rocky Helmet. Now, Rocky Helmet is in this category. This might be a controversial item. Some people might argue maybe it's in suboptimal or even niche. I say it's in don't use just because of the fact that Rocky Helmet, it gives you a decent defense buff as a passive while you have it equipped. The problem is that its passive ability, it says after taking like a certain damage threshold, it will do some of that damage back towards the enemy. The problem with this is that we've discovered in the community now that Rocky Helmet, I believe, was you need to have taken like 10% of your max HP before this activates. From a single attack, mind you. 10 HP from a single attack. So oftentimes if you're being attacked, the Rocky Helmet just won't activate just because they're single hits, like a basic attack, or maybe it's like a support move that does decent damage but not enough damage to trigger the Rocky Helmet. Oftentimes you'll just find that the Rocky Helmet will just not activate because people are just not doing enough damage to you on a single attack. They would have to be using something like a Unite move, or it would have to be some burst damage character like, I don't know, Mr. Mime, or like a jungling Greninja or Cinderace or something that can do pretty decent burst damage out of nowhere, or an Absol. That would be like these burst damage type Pokemon that were more likely to actually trigger this, but like most Pokemon aren't like that. So it doesn't really trigger as much as you would like, or at all in some cases, in which case it's kind of just sitting there purely for the defense buffs, in which case you can just kind of pick a different item instead to keep you alive a little bit better. So that's why I am saying don't use the Rocky Helmet. Some might argue it might be in others, but that's my opinion. Anyways, let's go over the staples real quick. Okay, in terms of the staples, Buddy Barrier, Focus Band, and Muscle Band are straight up in the staples category. You can quite literally run this combination right here on practically any Pokemon at any given time and do well with it. Now, like I said before, this does not mean this is the optimal build for every Pokemon. There's a bunch of Pokemon, particularly supports and tanks, that are not necessarily going to want this specific build. They might use variations of it. Some might only want the Buddy Berry and have something else instead from like the good options, for example, maybe niche. If you're just starting off as a new player, for example, and you're just looking for items to level up, you can safely go with these three on practically every Pokemon starting off. Buddy Barrier, the HP bonus shields that you get is just absolutely insane. The fact that it also gives it to a teammate that's nearby is nuts, because it means you can effectively help peel for your teammates by using your Ignite move to not only do damage or whatever your Ignite move moves, depending on your Pokemon, of course, like Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff doesn't do damage. You can use your Ignite move to do damage on top of also saving a teammate, because you're pressuring the enemy, but also giving them a little bit of extra health to help them get away, essentially. It's very useful in team fights. You can't, and it gives you the highest amount of HP passive buffs in the game too. So it just makes every Pokemon more tankier because they have more health. This is just a perfect example of an item, for example, that just completely overshadows the Aeos Cookie. Level 30 Buddy Barrier gives you 600 HP as a raw passive bonus just from having it equipped. Obviously not everyone's gonna have a level 30, but I'm kind of just throwing that out there, that like this is it. Okay, even a level 20, I forgot what the amount is. It might be like 400 or maybe like somewhere 400 to 500. Even that is better because you still have the bonus effects of the shields from using the Unite move on both you and a teammate. So I would rather have this as a passive on top of the ability rather than a maybe what if situation for Aeos Cookie. Focus Band is here just because of the fact it gives you equal defensive stats and special defense stats, buffs I should say, across the board, as well as it's a nice healing item. It's pretty much a really useful emergency healing item for any Pokemon that gets low. You can't really go wrong starting off with this if you don't really know what to run on a particular Pokemon. It's a safe item to go across the board. Focus Band, I will note though that the defensive buffs that it gives, the physical defense and the special defense, at level 30, it gives you plus 30 each, but it is worth noting, and I'll be making a separate video going over this pretty soon, but there are a lot of Pokemon in the game that have really low defensive stats where having the defense buffs from Focus Band is not going to make a difference. I'll tell you that right now, just as a quick disclaimer. It's just a nice staple that you can run on practically any Pokemon. Muscle Band also kind of runs in this vein, but just is a little bit better. Just because of the fact that Muscle Band scales according to the opponent's max HP, not your own like stats, making a lot more easier to pull off to get decent damage regardless of what Pokemon you're coming across. It also boosts your basic attack speed, which helps a lot of Pokemon, believe it or not. A lot of the ranged Pokemon in particular, I think, benefit the most from Muscle Band, just because of the fact that it means they can get more damage in faster at range. And for Pokemon like Ninetales, Muscle Band is kind of busted because of the increased attack speed. The extra damage is always nice too, but the increased attack speed for Pokemon like Ninetales, where their boosted attack helps slow down the enemy and potentially freezes them, being able to attack faster means you can slow them down and freeze them faster. And then any like hard ADS carry type Pokemon like Greninja, Cinderace, these like raw damage range characters also benefit from this because it means they can get damage in a lot faster. A lot of Pokemon that kind of rely on their basic attacks for the majority of their damage really help from this. But it's also a nice pick too for other Pokemon who don't really on their basic attack damage too much, but is a nice fallback option. Next up, we'll go over suboptimal. In my personal opinion, I'm putting in the suboptimal category Shellbell and Floatstone. I would say that these two items have probably, my opinions on these two items have probably progressed and evolved the most as time has went on and we learned more about these items. And from my own personal testing as well, Shellbell, it just does not live up to what it sounds like in the description and what it needs to be. Shellbell comes across as this like kind of, you know, decent healing item while also giving you attack buffs. At least when the game first came out, it came off as like with Wise Glasses being the first option to like boost your damage. Like here's Wise Glasses. Wise Glasses being like the first item to boost your special attack damage, and then you would have Shellbell afterwards just to kind of help boost it a little bit more. But these days, the special attack buff is just so small that it's honestly pretty unnoticeable for pretty much most Pokemon. Even in my testings, the special attack damage is just, it's almost non-existent, the bonus here. And the healing effects too. I'm not joking when I say that a level 30 Shellbell heals less than the leftovers. It's that bad. The only reason I put it in the suboptimal is because of the fact that at least it gives you that special attack bonus damage. You at least have more use out of it than the leftovers, because leftovers only occurs out of combat, where at least you're getting healing in combat, even if it's very minuscule, on top of a small damage bonus, even if it's kind of minuscule. At level 30, the minus 4.5% cooldown reduction on a good majority of Pokemon is also very unnoticeable. There's a good amount of Pokemon in this game whose cooldowns are only like a few seconds long, in which case the 4.5 second cooldown reduction, again, at level 30, it's even less than that at level 20. I forgot what that is. But the cooldown reduction is even less. You're not even getting like half a second back. It's so negligible that you're not really going to notice it. The damage buff is not going to notice it too much, and the healing is not going to notice it too much. It's primarily in the suboptimal just because of the fact there's other items that kind of do its job but better on top of that. And the only reason it's not in the don't use category is because of the fact that it just has more abilities than like these items. Even if they're kind of minuscule, they're still there. Like you still get them at least, compared to these where it feels like you don't really get them at all. Floatstone is also in this category. The physical attack buff is in the same vein as Shellbell. It's so minuscule that you don't really notice it. It does have a passive movement buff, which I don't hear people talking about enough, to be honest. is that in addition to its ability to have a boosted movement speed outside of combat, which triggers I think 8 seconds out of combat, by the way, just like with the leftovers, but it does have a passive movement buff when you have it just equipped. So just having equipped will make you a little bit faster than other Pokemon, even within combat, but outside of combat is where you notice the passive ability kick in to make you even faster than you already are. People don't talk about that. The only problem is that the passive buff that it gives you, the actual stat buff, the movement speed stat buff, it's not big enough that you really notice it either. It's just like Shell Bell. Technically, yes, you get the effects, but it's so negligible that you don't really notice it in game that much or at all. Next up, we have the good options. I'm going to go ahead and put Wise Glasses, Assault Vest, and Score Shield in good options. All of these items are fantastic. Every single one of them. And it's very easy on a lot of Pokemon that you can kind of mix and match these options with the staples options as well. For example, I'm a Mr. Mime main, so I typically run Buddy Barrier, Assault Vest, Score Shield as my default setup on Mr. Mime. I get the health buffs, passive buffs from the Buddy Barrier. Score Shield also has the second most highest health bonus buffs just from having equipped, and Assault Vest also does a pretty good job of that too. Also gives you health bonus. It's like the third highest, and I want to say Rocky Helmet also gives you health bonus too, but this one has a shield that scales with HP. So a lot of times the Assault Vest will, if you have multiple health items equipped like Buddy Barrier, Score Shield, and Assault Vest, all three of these items have abilities that scale according to your max HP, and all three of them give you bonus HP, meaning that their own, just having itself equipped, giving you bonus HP is helping it scale with itself better. It's crazy. So I'm not lying when I say, like, when I have all three of these on at level 30, my Score Shield, by the way, if you don't know off the top of your head, gives you a 10% shield while scoring based off your max HP. If you have a level 30 of each of these on, I think you get around like 1300 extra bonus health just from having them equipped. So on characters, let's just say Blissey, for example. Blissey has 10,000 HP at level 15. If I get an extra like 1300 HP just from having those equipped, if we just do some quick maths, you get a shield of 1,130 HP. You get a 1,130 HP shield while scoring. That's enough to block all basic attacks, on top of, you could even chunk an entire move altogether. Maybe even two, depending on what moves get used on you. Assault Vest is also in the same vein, where it gives you, I believe, a 15% special attack shield that protects you from special attacks that scales according to your max HP. Assault Vest is good for any Pokemon that really maybe lacks special defense. Take my Mr. Mime, for example. My Mr. Mime has a little bit less special defense than physical defense. So if I have my Assault Vest on, my special defense ends up being relatively the same as my Snorlax. If I have the shield turned on when it regenerates out of combat, I actually have a little bit more special defense than a Snorlax normally would too. These tend to be pretty good on any supports and defenders, just because they tend to have the most HP in the game typically. Even all-rounders can easily make use of these items too, these two items. It's worth noting that a good portion of, I would say the majority of the most popular attackers in the game are special attackers, which kind of makes Assault Vest also a little bit better. Just because you're more likely to run across the special attackers than you are the physical attackers. It's just a pretty good item overall. Wise Glasses is good, again, for a good portion of special attackers in the attacks category. It can be decent. It is worth noting that healers in particular, so Blissey and Eldegoss, they do more healing the higher your special attack stat. So if you have your Wise Glasses equipped to Eldegoss or Blissey, not only obviously will you do more damage when you use your attack moves, but you will also heal your teammates more. So that is worth noting. And it's partially why it's also in the good options. It's not just a damage buff, but it's also a decent healing buff too, for for any healer, any Pokemon in the game that has healing abilities, essentially. Now for the niche and situational category, I'm pretty much putting everything else in here. Now, some of you might find the scope lens being a little controversial, possibly even the energy amplifier in the niche situational category. I'll explain the scope lens first. The main reason I'm putting scope lens in the niche situational category is because recently information has came out, and I'll leave a link to the Reddit post down below if you want to check it out. But someone on Reddit has gone through and thoroughly tested every single move in the game that is capable of achieving critical hits. And from that test alone, what we found out is that the majority of Pokemon surprisingly cannot get critical hits off their attack moves in this game. There's only like, I can count the number of Pokemon on my hand that can actually get critical hits off their attack moves. Now, it's worth noting that all Pokemon can get critical hits off their basic attacks. All of them can. But in terms of the actual attack moves, most of them can't. So that's kind of why I'm putting the scope lens in the situational category. Most Pokemon cannot actually make full use out of this. Obviously, characters like Absol absolutely can. But that's like a very edge case, hence why it's niche situational. Very strong item, but to make the most use out of its ability, you want to be able to hit critical hits off your attack moves too, not just your basic attacks, in my opinion. So strong ability, strong item, just only really usable on certain Pokemon at this point in time. This is one of those items that everyone thought was busted and was like higher up on the tier when the game kind of first launched. But as we learned more about this item, we realized that its effects are not really being applied as much as we would like it to. Energy Amplifier is kind of in the same boat, where we learned that Energy Amplifier's damage bonus effect. So in case you don't know, when you use your Night move while having Energy Amplifier equipped, all of your damage for a short time afterwards, you deal 21% extra damage, I believe, at level 20. Is that correct? But what most people don't know is that the duration of that, the short duration that it mentions, is actually only 4 seconds. So that 21% extra damage threshold duration is only 4 seconds. So realistically, this is only useful on Pokemon who have, how should I say, Unite moves who tend to last for a little while, that aren't just instant. Okay, they tend to last for a little while. Those are the Pokemon that make most use out of Energy Amplifier. So think of Pokemon like Cramorant, for example. Cramorant has like a giant AoE Unite move that lasts for a few seconds. Because it lasts for a few seconds, Cramorant is like one of those few Pokemon that can actually make use of Energy Amplifier and get those extra damage effects for like crazy damage. Especially if you combine it with another item like Wise Glasses and Body Barrier. So like not only you're extra tanky from the Body Barrier, you do so much more damage with the Wise Glasses, but you do even more damage when you're ulting with the Energy Amplifier. So that's a good example. So it's a very strong item, but because it's most optimally used on Pokemon whose Unite moves kind of last for a little bit, and there's not a whole lot of Pokemon like that. But for the Pokemon that do have that, this is a strong item. It's kind of in the same vein as Scope Lens, essentially. Now, EXP Share, the reason why EXP Share is in this category is pretty much because this is almost exclusively like a support item. I see tanks use it sometimes, but in my opinion, I think it's not really optimal to run EXP Share on tanks. I think this is more or less primarily a support item, to be honest. The supports are more likely from experience to be the lowest levels on the team consistently. Not always, of course, but they're most likely to, in which case the EXP Share is just nice. It also just supports Pokemon's playstyle better too, because typically as a support Pokemon, most of your value comes from your abilities, not your damage. So you typically want to let your other teammate who's going in the same lane as you, let them get all the final blows and kills off all the wild Pokemon, so they get the extra experience from doing so, and lets them level up faster. So they can do all the damage and stuff for you that you need to get value. And you can just kind of support them and hold the lane with your abilities. Because again, pretty much all the supports, and even tanks for that matter, get all their value from their abilities. They're not really there for damage. If you do damage and get kills, awesome, more power to you, but their roles are typically not necessarily supposed to be there for damage. And you typically want your teammates to level up faster anyway. So EXP share is more or less exclusively a support item from my experience. It is worth noting too, and I feel like people don't really talk about this enough, but EXP share does give you health buffs too, just like how Buddy Barrier, Score Shield, and Assault Vest do. Just having it equipped, it does have a passive health buff. At level 30, I think it's 240 additional health, which is actually pretty decent. And it also gives you movement speed, surprisingly too. I think it's like 150 extra movement speed, which is almost the same exact thing as Floatstone. With that equipped, actually, I think it's more. I think Floatstone only gives you 120, but EXP share gives you 150. It's actually kind of crazy. So it helps you be able to run away a little bit faster from situations too. Especially if you're the lowest level on the team. So good item, but it tends to only really be used for one specific class, which happens to be the class that almost no one ever really plays to. And last but not least, we have the last two score items. Pretty much the only reason why these two are here at all is because of the fact that at least they increase your damage stats, period. Whereas Aeos Cookie, there's so many items in the game already that provide passive health buffs just from having them equipped, aka Buddy Barrier, Assault Vest, Score Shield, heck, even Rocky Helmet. Even Rocky Helmet is better than Aeos Cookie because Rocky Helmet also gives you bonus health. Even EXP share gives you bonus health just from having them equipped. There's so many of them that like it's just better to have one of these items that already give you bonus health equipped on top of having additional abilities than to try running Aeos Cookie. These two are primarily here just so you can have that extra damage. You can pretty much, if you're playing like particular Pokemon like Gengar or something, you can pretty much go for like a pure damage build or something, or any speedster. Like, it's not a joke when I say you actually get more damage from having one goal from Special Attack Lens than you do from having Shell Bell equipped. And I'm pretty sure if you can't even get one goal in a 10-minute game, then like something's wrong. You just need to score like 5 points, even 1 point, and you get the 100 attack buff. And like, boom, you got your value already. I'm sorry, did I say 100 attack? I meant 10. So you only really need like 2 goals to catch up to what these give you passively, which should be pretty easy. So these two here primarily is like that extra damage, that third item extra damage slot if you need it, but also going to just scale better than these two, just because these two passive buffs at level 30, mind you, are so many. Let's go. I think like both of them only give you plus 24 special attack for Shell Bell and physical attack for Rocky or Floatstone, that you really only need like 2-3 goals to get equal to, if not more, damage stats than what these two provide. So you can actually potentially get more than what these two, and you only need like a couple goals to get the same amount, which you should be able to in a 10-minute game. All right, but that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are about the tier list in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Help boost the YouTube algorithm, essentially. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to make at least one Pokemon Unite video roughly every day if possible. I kind of have to manage it with my work schedule, of course, and everything else happening in my life, but I'm trying to get them out fairly consistently. So without further ado, hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.